A California tech CEO lived in a $35 million beach mansion while telling the IRS he made $20,000 a year, and he funded it all by smuggling sensitive military technology to Iran.
Yeah, it's just a stunning contradiction. And
Mhm.
honestly, the deeper you look into how he actually pulled it off, the more alarming it
I mean, I
gets.
am still trying to wrap my head around it, but let me give you the quick 90-second rundown of the facts just to set the stage here.
Right, lay it out.
So we are looking at the case of 63-year-old Jamshed Ghassemi. He is a dual U.S. Iranian citizen, and recently the FBI raided his 14,000 square foot estate in Newport Coast, California.
Which is just massive, by the way.
Oh, totally massive. And he now faces up to 20 years in federal prison for violating U.S. sanctions. And how did he do it? By routing over 250 metric tons of controlled American technology straight to Iran's military and nuclear sectors.
250 metric tons. That's an unbelievable amount of hardware.
Right. And while coordinating this massive outward flow of tech, he laundered over $15 million back to the United States and, get this, fraudulently claimed poverty-level tax credits from the federal government.
Moving that much controlled hardware out of the country while sneaking $15 million of illicit cash in, it requires a level of logistical mastery that, well, usually takes an entire syndicate to manage.
Exactly. Which is exactly why our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the pure mechanics of this operation. We want to break down how this massive smuggling and money laundering machine actually functioned day to day.
Yeah, because the mechanics are fascinating.
They really are. And then we are going to examine how political commentators are viewing this specific case as a major national security warning.
Right, because this case has definitely become a talking point.
For sure. So our sources today include the detailed investigation notes from the FBI and the Department of Justice, as well as a transcript from a conservative YouTube show called the Brian Maxwell Real Politics Podcast.
And we really have a fascinating contrast in our source material today. I mean, on one hand, we have the dry, mechanical facts of the federal indictment.
Just the raw data.
Exactly. And on the other hand, we see a highly passionate, politically charged interpretation of what those facts mean for everyday Americans.
Yeah, so let's start with the physical smuggling operation because, I mean, my immediate reaction to hearing 250 metric tons of military-grade technology is to imagine, like, a Bond villain operating on the dark web.
Right, making secret deals in underground bunkers.
Exactly. But he did not do that at all, did he?
No, he did the exact opposite. He basically hid in plain sight.
Wow.
Yeah, the DOJ notes reveal he made over 400 separate purchases using his own personal eBay and PayPal accounts.
Wait, his own personal accounts?
Yep. He just bought advanced networking and security gear directly from everyday suppliers in, normal states like Minnesota and Nebraska.
Hold on. If a guy is buying advanced computing gear that's destined for an Iranian nuclear facility, how is he just clicking add to cart on eBay?
It sounds nuts, I know.
I mean, we have massive national security nets, right? The U.S. Treasury Department has the Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC. They maintain these massive watch lists.
They absolutely do.
So how does an algorithm not instantly red flag an account that's buying that volume of sensitive tech?
Well, it really comes down to how compliance actually works in global e-commerce.
Yeah.
OFAC regulations are strict, sure, but the system relies heavily on self-reporting by the sellers.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so imagine you are a mid-sized electronics supplier in the Midwest. A massive order comes in. The payment clears perfectly through PayPal.
Right, you got your money.
Exactly. And the shipping address is just a generic corporate warehouse in California or, maybe registered logistics company in Dubai. As far as your database is concerned, you just made a great domestic or friendly international sale.
You're just happy for the business.
Right. You run the buyer's name against the OFAC spreadsheet, and because Ghassemi used clean front companies, well, no alarm bells ring.
So the supplier is, practically speaking, completely blind to the ultimate destination.
Completely blind. Ghassemi exploited the sheer volume of mundane, everyday commerce. Once the equipment reached his front companies, he used freight forwarders in the United Arab Emirates, specifically Dubai, to leapfrog the sanctions.
Okay, let's break down that mechanism a bit. I mean, ordering a blender online and having it rerouted to a hostile foreign military is one thing, but this is heavy tech. What makes Dubai the perfect jumping-off point for something like this?
Well, Dubai is one of the busiest free trade zones and global transit hubs on the planet. I mean, Millions of tons of cargo move through its ports constantly.
Just a massive volume of boxes.
Yeah, exactly. And a freight forwarder acts essentially like a travel agent for cargo. They consolidate shipments, they book space on cargo ships, and handle local customs paperwork.
Okay, so they handle the logistics.
Right. So Ghassemi instructed his co-conspirators in the UAE to strip his name completely off all the onward shipping paperwork.
Just erase his footprint.
Yep. He specifically told them to omit invoices from any shipments bound for Iran, which, by the way, they referred to in their internal communications as the motherland.
Wow. But, customs officials still inspect cargo, right? I mean, even if the paperwork is scrubbed, if you open a shipping container and find military-grade encryption servers, that has to spark an investigation.
Oh, absolutely. But only if they know which container to open.
Ah, right.
To prevent that, Ghassemi's network physically hid the sensitive U.S. origin computer equipment inside much larger, completely unrelated shipments.
So like a needle in a haystack.
Exactly. Imagine a shipping container filled with basic industrial parts or like generic consumer electronics. Deep in the back, buried under pallets of boring commercial goods, sit the advanced routers.
Man, so without specific actionable intelligence pointing customs officers to that exact container out of the millions passing through the port, it just looks like normal trade.
Yeah, it's terrifyingly simple. He just camouflaged the tech within the noise of global capitalism.
And this wasn't harmless equipment we were talking about. The DOJ notes confirm a significant portion of this gear went to the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran.
The AEOI.
Right.
That is the government agency directly responsible for their centrifuge and uranium enrichment programs.
Yeah, it is heavy stuff.
It really is. And another major recipient was the Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces Logistics, which, oversees research and manufacturing for Iran's entire defense enterprise.
Okay, so we see how he bypassed the outward-facing security nets by using front companies and the sheer overwhelming volume of Dubai's shipping lanes. But moving the physical tech is only half the puzzle.
Right, you have to follow the money.
Exactly. We need to look at the money coming in. Over $15 million flowed back into his pockets. Moving that kind of cash out of sanctioned Iranian banks into the United States feels like it should be totally impossible.
Yeah, the financial deception requires an entirely different set of mechanics. It is honestly a textbook lesson in money laundering.
Let's hear it.
So the revenue from his tech sales started an operating account at a sanctioned Iranian bank. The challenge for Ghassemi was getting that money into a California bank without anyone noticing where it came from.
Which means he couldn't just wire it. Like if an Iranian bank tries to wire US dollars to an American bank, the transaction gets blocked instantly by the international banking system. Right?
Oh, instantly. Which is why he used a really sophisticated layering process through a network of shadow exchange houses and trading companies.
How does that work?
Think of money laundering, like pouring a cup of bright red dye into a massive, fast-moving river.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The red dye is the illicit Iranian money. If you try to hand that red cup directly to a U.S. bank, well, they arrest you.
Right.
But if you pour the dye into the river, let it mix with millions of gallons of rushing water, and then scoop out a cup of water 10 miles downstream, it just looks like natural water.
That is a great analogy. So how did he build his river, so to speak?
By hopscotching the funds across multiple jurisdictions with high financial secrecy or massive commercial volumes. The money moved through accounts in the British Virgin Islands, Hong Kong, Turkey, and the UAE.
That is a lot of hops.
Yeah, and in many cases, these exchange networks operate on debt ledgers rather than physical wire transfers across borders.
Oh, like an informal value transfer.
Yeah, exactly. A broker in Tehran takes the Iranian currency, and a completely separate broker in Hong Kong releases clean U.S. dollars from a different account to settle the balance. By the time the money actually hit his U.S. accounts, its origins were completely disconnected from Iran.
And to make that downstream cup of water look even cleaner, he attached false descriptions to the incoming wires, right? He labeled them for consulting fees or buying goods.
Yeah, just generic business terms that tell an automated banking compliance system absolutely nothing suspicious.
Wow.
And that washed money allowed him to build a staggering real estate portfolio. I mean, more than $7 million of these foreign wires flowed directly into a California escrow account.
To build the mega mansion.
Yes. He used that cash to buy a vacant lot in Newport Coast for $4.49 million. And then he spent another $10.49 million physically constructing a 14,000 square foot mansion.
Which brings us to the tax fraud part, because this is the part that genuinely breaks my brain. I mean, it's like robbing a bank and then asking the teller to validate your parking.
That's a perfect way to put it.
He has over $15 million pouring in from offshore accounts. He is literally building a $35 million beach mansion. When tax season rolls around, how on earth does he claim he only made $20,000 a year?
Well, he exploited a massive disconnect in how different types of wealth are reported to the federal government. To explain the massive influx of wire transfers to his bank, he falsely categorized the millions as a foreign inheritance.
Oh, foreign inheritance.
Yeah, because
Uh,
in the U.S. tax code, an inheritance from a foreign national often isn't subject to the same income tax rates as a regular salary. And it requires different specific disclosure forms rather than your standard W-2.
But wait, even if he hides the principal amount as an inheritance, he still has a massive real estate footprint.
He does.
The DOJ said he claimed a maximum income of $20,684 on his federal returns. But simultaneously, he was deducting over $1.7 million in home mortgage interest.
Yeah, and $1.25 million in local real estate taxes.
Right. Does the IRS not have a computer program that compares a person's income to their massive property tax deductions?
You would definitely assume they do, but government financial oversight systems are surprisingly siloed.
Really? They don't talk to each other.
Not like you'd think.
Yeah.
The local county assessor collects real estate taxes. The IRS collects federal income tax. Those two massive databases do not constantly sync up in real time to look for lifestyle discrepancies unless a specific audit is triggered.
That is wild.
Yeah, so since his W-2 income was practically non-existent, the automated mainframe processing his standard 1040 form just saw a low-income citizen.
It is staggering. He actively weaponized the blind spots of the bureaucracy, and he took it a step further by claiming the earned income tax credit.
Which is just brazen.
It really is. I mean, the EITC is a benefit specifically designed to help the working poor.
And he claimed that poverty level credit for 7 different years.
7 years?
Yeah, he wasn't just avoiding taxes. He was actively taking money meant for struggling families while sitting in a 14,000 square foot mansion.
It is infuriating to hear how easily these gaps are exploited. You can see how a single individual navigating these loopholes makes a complete mockery of the system.
You really can.
And that frustration provides the perfect bridge into the final part of our deep dive today, which is the political fallout. Because when systems fail this spectacularly, it naturally becomes a lightning rod for public debate.
Oh, absolutely. Which is why we reviewed the transcript from the Brian Maxwell Real Politics podcast to really understand how this specific crime is being processed in the political sphere.
Right. And the source uses this case not just as a true crime story, but as undeniable proof of larger systemic failures in American governance.
Yeah. And just a quick reminder for you listening, our goal here is to objectively explore this source's viewpoint without taking any sides.
Exactly. We are just the messengers here. We want to understand the rhetorical strategies being used to shape the public narrative around national security.
Right. So the Maxwell podcast frames Ghassemi's arrest as a major victory for the Trump administration, portraying it as a successful effort to catch domestic traitors.
Okay.
However, the host explicitly argues that the illicit activity itself was allowed to thrive because of the Biden administration's lack of vetting and generally weak border security.
So the source takes the micro, this one tech CEO, and really scales it up to attack macro policies.
He really does. And one of the biggest leaps he makes is using this smuggling case to argue against the concept of dual citizenship entirely.
Interesting. How does he justify that?
Well, the podcast host articulates a deep-seated fear of internal sympathizers. He suggests that dual citizens, or individuals living in blue states and sanctuary cities on visas, are actively working with the Islamic Republic to undermine American interests.
So he sees them as a sort of fifth column.
Exactly. The argument is that these individuals use the economic freedoms of the U.S. to quietly fund the enemies of the U.S.
And the source also draws a direct line between domestic American politics and Iran's global military strategy, right? He makes a fascinating claim about how media coverage here actually impacts the timeline for Iran building a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, he does. The source argues that Iran refuses to back down from its aggression because they feel emboldened by domestic division in America.
Meaning what, exactly?
He claims that when mainstream media outlets or Democratic politicians criticize U.S. military strikes against Iran, It sends a clear signal to the Iranian regime that America lacks the unified will to stop them.
So in the eyes of this commentator, domestic political opposition essentially acts as a shield for foreign adversaries.
That is the core of his argument. By relying on American media to create domestic pressure against military action, Iran basically buys itself the crucial time it needs to slowly develop its nuclear capabilities. So the smuggling case isn't just about computer routers for him. It is framed as one tentacle of a much larger web of domestic complicity.
What I found most striking about the podcast, honestly, was a specific rhetorical transition the host made.
Oh, the Medicare pivot.
Yes.
Yeah.
He went from talking about Iranian nuclear centrifuges and massive